Welcome to Haunted Midnight Stories. Here are 3 true creepy road trip stories. Before we get started, I am a new channel, and subscribing motivates me to carry on posting new content. Thank you. Looking back, I never should have suggested that road trip. It was a reckless idea motivated by youthful ignorance. At the time, a spontaneous adventure with my closest friends seemed thrilling. Now I know better. Now I understand that some roads are not meant to be traveled. It started innocently enough. Spring break of sophomore year, my beat-up sit-in packed with snacks, playlists blaring. Me and my 3 best friends, ready to leave the stress of school behind. We took turns behind the wheel, switching every few hours, often singingly badly along with the radio. The first couple days went smoothly as we wound through green rolling hills and farm country. But on the 3rd day, an unsettling atmosphere descended. We had turned onto an isolated back road to save time. Not another car in sight for miles, just empty asphalt cutting through a desolate landscape. Shadows lengthened as the sun sank lower, and still no other drivers passed. Unease tickled my spine. I tried adjusting the radio to lighten the mood, but only static hissed from the speakers now. My friend fiddled with the dials but couldn't find a single station. I popped in a tape, but the warbling music sounded distorted. Wrong. I suggested we switch drivers and get off this road soon. But just as my friend took the wheel, a foul stench seeped through the vents, a choking miasma of decay and putrefaction. We all gagged as the rotten smell overwhelmed the confined space. Navigating the winding road, my friend pulled over so we could check under the hood. But no leak or dead animal explained the terrible odor. It lingered like a malignant presence, despite our attempts to air out the car. We had no choice but to drive on, white-knuckled grips on our seats. The sun slipped below the horizon, and still the road extended before us, enveloped more deeply in shadow. In the distance, I spotted a hunched figure staggering along the roadside, barely illuminated in our headlights. As we passed, the face of an elderly man peered out from matted hair, eyes devoid of human warmth. Just hollow black pools that chilled my soul. I was relieving my friend at the wheel when we came across a ramshackle gas station, the only building we'd seen in what felt like hours. Though skeptical, we were running low on fuel and had no choice but to stop. A pickup truck waited silently by the pumps, but the building appeared deserted. I told my friends to stick close while I filled up the tank. Inside, the fluorescent lights sputtered, showcasing grime-coated walls devoid of products or staff. But through the filth-streaked windows, I glimpsed crude letters scrawled in what looked like dried blood. "Get out." I sprinted to the car, shouting for us to go, go, go. Peeling out onto the lonesome road, I met my friend's frightened eyes as darkness swallowed us once again. I didn't know what evil inhabited that place, but I knew we had to escape. The headlights carved a feeble sphere of visibility into the murk ahead. Without warning, a shape materialized at the edges, eyes glinting. An emaciated dog, ribs poking through matted fur, stood frozen in our path. Passing by, its empty eyes bored into mine, devoid of any intelligence, only ravenous hunger. No one spoke as we hurtled through the blackness. The fuel gauge needle ticked lower while my nerves won tighter. When the windshield suddenly exploded, I nearly swerved off the road. A harsh crack jolted us awake. The blown radiator spewed steam, stranding us alone in the pitch void. No cell reception either. We sat in petrified silence, comprehending our bleak predicament. Then a bobbing light emerged from the dark woods. A hunched figure with a lantern, overalls hanging off skeletal limbs, lurched toward us. It raised the lantern, weathered lips peeling back to reveal toothless gums. Every instinct screamed to flee. I slammed the gas, lurching forward on shredded tires, desperate to escape the sinister stranger. We drove on through the night on our crippled vehicle, too terrified to stop. But the waiting darkness was worse. Dawn's arrival gradually returned color to the world. The suffocating fear abated along with the shadows. By mid-morning, signs of life surrounded us again. But the trauma lingered. We drove in speechless shock until skyscrapers at last emerged on the horizon, welcoming us back to comfort and crowds. In the safety of home, the madness of that road seemed surreal. But it haunts me still, for I now know that forgotten places harbor timeless evils. They wait patiently for the lost, the weary, the reckless. Wait to reveal what nightmares may come when you stray unaware into their domain. I wish I could forget that road, and the horrors barely escaped. But some images never fade. They lurk at the outskirts of your mind, creeping back in helpless moments to remind you. Be grateful for the light, for it shields us from the darkness that yaws beyond. Not all those who wander can find their way back again. I'll never forget the nightmare road trip I took with my college friends one summer. It was supposed to be an epic cross-country adventure, hitting all the classic American sites and making memories to last a lifetime. We didn't end up seeing much though, besides the inside of my sedan and the depths of fear itself. The first few days living out of a car went smoothly. Me, my buddy Jake, and our friends Andrea and Sophia laughed over fast food and belted out song lyrics as the miles rolled by. We hiked mountain trails out west, watched the sun set over desert vistas, and gorged on seafood on the coast. The open road welcomed us with stunning views and freedom. But things took a turn once we hit the Midwest. The landscape flattened out into endless seas of corn, wheat, and soy that all blended together. The little towns we passed through felt like ghost towns, chipped paint, boarded up shops, and suspicious stares from the locals. Something about this place felt off. At night, strange sounds echoed outside our motel room doors, scritching, soft rustling, sometimes footsteps. One night I jerked awake to the sound of sharp claws scraping down the door of the room Jake and I shared. My heart pounded wildly as I shook him awake, and we sat paralyzed, clung together in deafening silence until sunrise. When dawn finally broke, we fled that place without looking back. The final blow came when we got hopelessly lost. The GPS glitched and directed us down an endless maze of empty rural routes. We drove for what felt like days, desperately scanning for signs back to the highway. The sky darkened above fields of deserted farmland. When we finally came across an isolated farmhouse, I didn't like the look of it one bit. The whole place seemed dead, broken windows blocked by boards, paint peeling off in giant sheets, an air of decay. But we were so lost and on edge that we had to at least try to find a map or phone. The front door creaked open reluctantly when we pushed. Inside, it was freezing and blanketed in layers of dust. Our flashlights cut through pitch-black rooms, revealing cobwebs and collapsing wallpaper. It looked like no one had stepped foot here in decades. We searched every room to no avail. That's when we heard it. A distant, wet gurgling sound that turned my blood to ice. It was like something choking, coming from below the house. Andrea's wide eyes met mine, terrified. "The basement," she whispered. We all froze, straining to hear over the pounding of our hearts. When that horrible liquid sound came again, we broke towards the door. The front entrance jammed, resisting our panic scrambling, until Jake threw his full weight against it. We burst out of that nightmarish house and sprinted for the car. I peeled backwards down the gravel drive, fishtailing onto the rural route as we fled in the night. The headlights cut through sheer darkness with no end in sight. Eventually, we came across a highway and pulled off at the first building we saw, an old diner. The wary waitress eyed us like we were crazy when we rambled about the farmhouse basement and getting lost. She told us to stick to the main roads from here on out. We took her advice, driving 2 days straight and stopping only when the car needed gas. The trip back was strained, all of us shaken and hollowed out by fear. Finally reaching the city limits felt like waking from a bad dream. But ever since that trip, the darkness still lingers. I close my eyes and see the decrepit farm receding behind us. Hear the muffled choking rising from below. Feel the primal terror that overtook me. We all made it back in one piece, but each of us left something behind in that empty stretch of rural nightmare land. The nightmares still shake me awake sometimes. I know my friends do too, though we avoid speaking of it. We awakened something evil on that road trip, and I fear its grip may never fully release us. The darkness still follows me, biding its time, hungry for a chance to finish what it started. I can only pray the light keeps it at bay forever. This solo road trip was supposed to be a peaceful chance to clear my head. Just me, the open road, and trusty old Betsy, my GPS. She would guide the way while I relaxed and enjoyed the drive. At least, that was the plan. The first leg went smoothly as I drove along the interstate. With the windows down and music up, I sang horribly off-key at the top of my lungs. Miles of highway stretched on ahead, and not another soul in sight. Pure freedom. Eventually, I took an exit, the first step in old Betsy's calculated route. As we ventured further from the main road, the landscape became more rural. Rolling green hills and farms sprawled as far as the eye could see. Quaint country living at its finest. After some time, old Betsy directed me to take a narrow side road cutting through the fields. The paved road quickly crumbled into a worn dirt path. The farms were replaced by thick woods crowding both sides. An isolation settled in that I tried to push from my mind. But I trusted old Betsy to lead me back to civilization soon enough. Yet the road only narrowed further, twisting and turning through the increasingly oppressive forest. Towering trees loomed over me, their branches creating a canopy that blocked out the sun. I felt utterly enveloped within the woods. In the distance, a faded sign appeared for a campground, long abandoned by the looks of it. The overgrown trail beyond was choked with vegetation. A chill ran down my spine gazing upon that forgotten place. Unease continued mounting as the path narrowed to barely accommodate my vehicle squeezing through. I could have sworn phantom shapes darted between the trees, always at the corner of my vision. The forest felt alive and watching. I finally pulled over, the disquiet in my gut convincing me it was time to reset old Betsy and get back on track. But each new route I entered only sent me further down the same ominous trail. Dread settled in my stomach as the realization struck. I was well and truly lost. The sky overhead darkened ominously. As the first fat drops of rain splashed my windshield, I knew I needed shelter fast. Up ahead, the trees parted to reveal a dilapidated cabin, half collapsed with age. My heart pounded, but I had no better options. I cautiously pulled up and ran onto the covered porch as the sky opened up. Peering inside revealed nothing but darkness. The door creaked open at my push, releasing a musty scent overlaying the earthy smell of fresh rain. I flicked on my phone's flashlight with a deep breath and stepped inside. The single small room was totally deserted, covered in layers of dirt and leaves. A rusted wood stove occupied one corner. No signs of life, yet I couldn't escape the feeling of not being alone, as if something watched my every move. I jumped at a sudden loud bang against the exterior walls. Just tree branches tossed by the strengthening storm, I told myself. Exhaustion taking hold, I settled onto the dirty floor to wait out the rain. My heavy eyes soon closed. I'm not sure how much time passed before I awoke with a start. The rain had stopped, and an unnatural silence permeated the cabin. I stood on stiff limbs and stretched. It was time to try the GPS again. Stepping outside, the full moon illuminated the woods in an icy glow. I rushed to my SUV, desperate to be moving again. But the engine only sputtered weakly when I turned the key. Dread washed over me as I realized I was stuck there for the night. I retreated to the cold cabin, knowing sleep would prove impossible. The dark hours crawled by as strange whispers and echoes surrounded me. I huddled tightly in the corner, more frightened than I ever felt before. At long last, the faintest morning light appeared. I burst outside, heart pounding with anticipation of escape. But confusion quickly replaced hope. Somehow in the night, the cabin had moved from the wood's edge to a remote clearing. It was as if the trees had shifted, surrounding me once more. The forest didn't want to release its grip. A wisp of smoke rose from the chimney, though the cabin had been cold the night before. Stark terror gripped me as I accepted the horrifying truth. Something ancient and sinister inhabited these woods, and it had no intention of letting me leave. I peered desperately through the trees, searching for any route of escape, but there was none. The woods had closed in, trapping me. Heavy footsteps sounded on the cabin's creaky porch. I froze. The ancient front door slowly swung open. Heart seizing in my chest, I turned to face the doorway. A massive figure filled the entry, obscured by shadow. I stumbled back as it stepped inside, the floorboards groaning under its weight. An overpowering stench washed over me, musky fur and raw flesh. The creature moved into a patch of light, and my scream caught in my throat. Before me stood a hulking bipedal beast, covered head to toe in coarse brown fur. Its lips pulled back to reveal jagged yellow fangs. I scrambled away on hands and knees as the beast approached with a rumbling growl. My back hit the cabin wall, nowhere left to run. Towering over me, the creature raised one massive clawed hand. I squeezed my eyes shut as my heart pounded wildly, accepting this was the end. The claw slashed down towards me. Instead of piercing flesh, the claw grasped my shoulder firmly but gently. My eyes flew open in shock. The beast slowly shook its shaggy head from side to side, as if scolding a misbehaving child. With another deep rumble, the creature turned and lumbered towards the door. I stayed paralyzed against the wall, struggling to comprehend what just happened. The beast paused at the threshold. It looked back at me one last time with almost sadness in its eyes, then disappeared into the forest. The frantic pounding of my heart began to slow. Somehow I'd been judged and found worthy of living, found worthy of leaving these woods unharmed.